Welcome to the second video explaining the VCE unit of work. So I've already discussed the outline of the cover page and the template of the unit plan. So this video is going to explain the individual reflection and the assessment rubric of the assignment. So this is going to be done by yourself. Put your group members there, but we want to know here about your pedagogy and your thoughts behind the unit and your experience creating this unit and working collaboratively. So what are the skills, this idea here, what are the skills you're going to develop in the unit? You need to be thinking about what skills you're going to be improving in creating this unit. So thinking before you create the unit. Explain the outcome in connection with your unit planning and the intended outcomes for your students as well as yourself. So here we want to know how you've incorporated the Victorian Teaching Learning Model to improve student outcomes in your classroom. Now you need to connect these ideas with the practice principles, the pedagogical model and HITS. So explain your reasoning in terms of the 5 E's, but in particular explain, elaborate and evaluate. So how have you addressed them? So it's not enough just to say, okay, well, what happens in the explain stage, the elaborate stage and the evaluate stage? You need to think about how you've actually demonstrated those and give examples and explanations supporting each. Same with the HITS. So obviously in your lesson plan, your unit plan, you'll have collaborative learning. How have you addressed collaborative learning? So what aspects have you incorporated this, and what kind of skills are the students, undertaking and learning in terms of collaborative learning? Multiple exposures, the same, feedback. Okay, so all of these, it's not enough just to describe what the HITS outcome says. You need to link it to your your unit plan, and explain how you've addressed them, as well as the practice principles, and just focus on these ones because there's too many to discuss within. All right, so at the end of the unit, thinking about, well, all right, what criteria are you going to use as a teacher to evaluate whether students have learned? What evidence are you collecting? And how will you know they're ready for the next step? You can discuss here, what are you going to do if they're not ready for the next step? Well, what are you going to do to support them? Okay. Here we want you to discuss, it's a real individual reflection, thinking about, well, what have you learned in terms of this assignment? Overall, what was your experience like working collaboratively? You will be working collaboratively in your profession. You plan together generally, especially if you've got a really strong team. So thinking about your experience in this assignment, did your group work well? Did you not work well? Why not? This is your chance to explain your experiences in this assignment. So this experience, how's it informed your professional practice? What are your strengths and weaknesses in terms of working collaboratively? The last one is a short reflection on your learning experiences, but thinking about how they've changed from the beginning of the unit to its completion now. So what progression have you made? Thinking about AITSL outcomes and standards, you can discuss and bring them in, which ones you've achieved with this experience and how. So the key again is not just to list them, but indicate, well, how have you achieved these in this experience? And this is a really important one, and one that you really need to be thinking about throughout your whole professional practice, is thinking about skills that you need to work on moving forward. So we are always striving to become better teachers. So think about areas and skills that you need to work on in the future. And we call this practice changed. Okay, so going back to the unit of work, have a read through what it makes to achieve a high distinction. But I'll draw your attention to the assessment rubric. So looking at what it needs to be done to achieve a very high, you're going to be assessed on the sequence of your unit. Now, obviously, you've got constraints in terms of the key knowledge and key skills that you need to include, but you need to be thinking about how they connect to each other. How can students experience creative thinking, higher order thinking experiences? So these are things that really are advantageous for an exam, for an example. You've thought about the sequencing of topics and activities. There's a flow to your unit, and you have reflected the readings and the coursework in your unit plan. You've incorporated the ideas that we've covered in class, and it's reflected in your unit sequencing and activities. So the second criteria is looking at the specific instructional strategies and the key teaching practices that you've included, in addition to the curriculum documents. So not only have you included a range of instructional strategies and teaching practices so that students are engaged, you've thought about the different learning styles, so you've incorporated differentiation, and you've really thought significantly about the curriculum documents. So we're talking about the study design, advice for teachers, the examiner's report at the end of the year, all the documents that need to be considered when you're actually writing a unit plan for VCE. Your materials and resources are appropriate for the year level. Assessment strategies. So you've thought about formative assessment, summative assessment. You've got a range of assessment as for and of within your lessons and your unit plan. And you have catered to differentiation and learning needs. So individual will be your reflection page. So thinking about your considerations to the curriculum documents, the government policies, the AITSL standards, and you've made clear connections between, the collaborative experiences that you've undertaken and how that's influenced your understanding. You have carefully considered the connections between the unit itself and the workshops, and you've thought about how you can improve considerably. Okay. So just to recap, you have 3 things that you need to hand in. You've got the unit overview, okay, which will be done collaboratively, which indicates the intentions and the rationale behind the unit. You've got the unit plan itself, okay, so you don't have to hand in lesson plans, it's just the overall unit sequence, okay, and you've got the individual reflection, which I've discussed in this video. Okay, so good luck and happy planning.